Hello and welcome everybody. Today we continue our Gambit guide. And sometime your opponents could use quite rare opening, which we call the Beard's opening. So this F2, F4 move, which named after the English master Henry Beard. Even I used to play this quite rare move, I would say, in my famous game against Deep Freeze, like 8 years ago, in which the quite famous position with all pawns on the first board happened. Okay, so after F4, of course, black could simply continue knight f6 or d5 or any other move like c7, c5. But today, I would like to opening line we call the From1, also called after the Danish chess player who discovers this interesting opening line. So after f4, e5, f takes e5, and d6, black is just offering the pawn sacrifice. So after d6 and bishop takes d6, we just got in the standard position of the From1's gambit. So what for black decided to sacrifice the pawn? Black already has quite good development. Look at bishop on d6, looking towards the white's king side. Other bishop c8 is also quite aggressively posed towards the white's king side. Also, in many situations, the position of white's king on e1 could be a quite serious problem for white. Let's say if white is not playing so carefully and just make some move like knight c3, trying to continue developing usual way, this is a huge blunder, because black is just coming with the queen h4 check and suddenly white's king has no escape. After g3, so black has two options to checkmate white's king, or bishop take g3, h take g3 and queen take g3 and game is over. So this is a checkmate so fast. And second option is of course just to capture with the queen, and after h take g3 and bishop take g3, checkmate. So despite the fact black is a queen down, white's king is checkmated. So you can realize that white has to be very careful and to play precise in this situation, because many different opening traps are somehow connected with the From1's gambit in the Beard's opening variation. So let's say after knight f3, somehow white is covering the h4 square, but black is aggressively could continue to play g5, intending g4. So the just huge blunder will be attempt to stop black's pawn. After h3, white's king is going to be made at once after bishop g3. Also, after g3, black usually continues here h5 with the h4, but somehow I saw a few games which continues that way. Queen g5, and white decided to attack the black's queen on g5, and after knight f3 completely missed that black's maiden sacrifice on g3 would finish the game immediately, like that. Queen take g3, h take g3 and bishop take g3, checkmate. Game is over so fast. So if after knight f3. Black plays g5. And white plays some move like, let's say, knight c3, and after g4 plays knight d4. Unfortunately, this comes into the same mating pattern after queen h4 check, g3, queen takes g3, h takes g3, and bishop takes g3. So this typical checkmate situation is just quite often happen in the From's gambit line. Okay, now let's just be familiar with some other ideas. So what could happen in case white is playing, I would say, more precise? First of all, many ask, so what would happen in case of f4 and e5? White is not capturing the pawn, but plays e4. In that case, we are transposing the game into the king's gambit variation. In that situation, we already studied that one of the main and the most dangerous for white responses is d7, d5, which you can find in my lectures. So Falk's bear contra gambit line. So e4 you shouldn't be so scared in case of e2, e4. So take on e5, d6, e takes d6, bishop takes d6. So now, ready to say, white has two main lines here. One is to play knight f3, second is to play g3, and in both lines, black is having quite strong initiative, thanks to the better development, thanks to the open diagonals and opportunity to create quite strong pressure on white's king side, because all black pieces are looking toward it. So one of the game continues that way. Knight f3. Possible, of course, to play g5, and we will study as g5 is the main line, but also black could simply develop his pieces, and thanks to the good development, taking control, look over the center squares, just to continue with the short castings, and maybe rook comes to e8. This second knight also finds easily the good outpost in the center on knight c6. The light square bishop could be developed on g4 or f5. So black is having huge compensation for a pawn. Knight c3. As I said before, is possible just to play short casting. But in that case, maybe white could try to fight back for his center after d4 and then with the idea to play e4. That's why, thanks to the better development, black immediately could start the assault on the king side. Knight g4, looking at h2 pawn. So, once again, h3 is a huge blunder. Bishop g3 will lead to the checkmate situation. Knight e4. So black is trying to stop what is trying to stop black from attack and even to get rid of this bishop, maybe to trade this bishop. So what white missed, that black has quite unpleasant move. Knight takes h2. And suddenly white cannot accept the sacrifice. Either way, the position is quite dangerous for white. Let's say after knight takes d6 and queen takes d6, rook takes h2 or knight takes h2 leads to the similar checkmate situation, queen g3. So black is taking advantage of f4 move which white made in the opening, after which the position of the king is quite dangerous. So especially the white weakening too much the diagonal e1 h4. So let's look another line. So if knight takes d6 doesn't work, so maybe let's try to play rook takes h2. But in that case, after bishop takes h2, knight takes h2 and queen h4 check, is it not checkmate, but after knight f2 and queen takes h2, black is getting decisive material advantage. Just exchange up and much better position for black. So what else possible after knight takes h2? So knight takes h2 leads to the similar problem. Check on h4, and now we can choose. After g3 is a bad move because bishop take g3 and checkmate is coming. So the best response, of course, is knight f2, after which black has choice. Possible to capture on h2 with the bishop, but I prefer this nice move. Bishop g3. White has no way to stop bishop takes f2. Since after knight f3, the knight is still under threat, so bishop takes f2 leads to the checkmate, and in case white is trying the trick to play knight g4, black is not capturing on f2, of course. Black could already capture on g4 since f2 knight is still pinned, but queen takes h1 is even better alternative. So winning exchange and still the g4 knight is on the air. Game is over. Black is getting decisive material advantage. So already after knight takes h2, white's position is quite dangerous. So in the game, white decided to play takes, and here I guess that the best opportunity for white was to play d4 and to open the window for a king for escaping to d2. Instead, white made just a wrong choice. Played king f2, trying to cover the g3 square. But what exactly happened here? What is the problem? The problem is that black is playing knight g4, continuing his kingside attack. And where to go with the king now? King has no escape. If you play king e1, then queen g3 checkmate is coming. If you play king g1, which looks quite safe, so now black is taking advantage of unprotected hanging position of white's queen on d1. So after knight e3, suddenly white is losing material. So g takes e3 not possible because queen takes d1. And queen e1 is not possible because after knight takes c2, white is going to lose the full rook on a1. So black is getting just huge material advantage. That's back. So after f4, e5, f takes e5 and d6, e takes d6 and bishop takes d6, knight f3, g5. One of the best alternatives here for white is to play g3 move. So white is intending to move the bishop to g2 next, to maybe then to play short castling. But what's the problem here? The problem is that after g4, knight cannot go to g1 back. Since after h5 and h4, white is almost destroying white's king side. So it's only chance instead to play knight h4. But then after knight e7 and the threat knight g6 is so unpleasant for white. d3, knight g6, knight take g6, h take g6. So black is opens the most dangerous now, the file, h file, bishop g2, and simply rook takes h2 once again. White had no time to complete his development. After rook takes h2 and bishop takes g3, king f1 and queen f6 check, or bishop takes h2, which quite easy without any complications. So black already is getting the material advantage, so just pawn up and no much compensation. In case white is trying to take his king in the safe place after bishop g2, knight g6, knight take g6, 8 take g6, and short castling, even here we are coming with a typical and I would say classical combination. Look what way we can use our strong position. Rook takes h2, king takes h2, queen h4 check. Don't forget that pawn g3 pinned. So king g1 and bishop take g3. White's king is in enormous trouble. Hopeless position. Black is intending queen h2 checkmate, and only one escape from preventing black from doing that is just to sacrifice the rook somewhere, f2 or f4 or f7 or e1. So after which black is just getting back the rook, keeping the huge attack on the king's side. I would say almost winning position for black. So we can see not so easy for white to solve the problems in the From's gambit of the bird's opening if you make just one mistake. Let's back and see one more game. f4, e5, f takes e5, d6, e takes, bishop takes, knight f3, g5, e4, g4, e5. White is trying very hard to lock this d6 bishop, or to get rid of this d6 bishop. G takes f3, e takes d6, queen h4 check. Wow. Suddenly white's king has no escape, so king cannot go to e2. g3, queen e4 check. So bishop e2, just simply f takes e2. King f2, once again only move, and queen d4. So don't play with the fire. After king takes f3 and bishop g4, queen is gone. And after king e1, f2, king e2, and bishop g4, the game is finished with a nice checkmate situation. Okay, so one more situation which happened in From's gambit. f4, e5, f takes e5, d6, e takes d6, bishop takes d6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3. So instead of playing g5, black is just going for the simple development. So here possible to play knight g4 as we studied already, but even short castling move is possible. After e4, rook e8, black is pressing white's position via the center files. d3, and only now black could play knight g4. Similar ideas. Let's say if white plays bishop e2, we just simply capture knight takes h2. Why it's so dangerous, you can ask me. Because after knight takes h2, bishop g3, check, white king has no escape. Look at that position, it's so funny. If you play king d2, then queen g5 leads to the checkmate. Suddenly, white's king is the center of the board, just checkmate it. And if you play king f1, in that case, we can find another problem in white's position, just weakness of the dark squares. Queen d4 threatening the checkmate on f2. So Black is intending queen f2 and no way to stop it. Bishop e3, queen takes e3, knight g4, bishop take g4, just getting rid of the last piece which could protect white's king. So queen a1 and leads to the queen lose after bishop takes e1. So position is very, very dangerous, very unpleasant situation. Even I could show you a few games which were not finishing so fast, but also quite interesting between two not so bad players. f4 e5, f takes e5, d6, e takes d6, bishop takes d6, knight f3, knight f6, g3. So in that game, black is not pushing the pawn on the king side after h5 or h4, but just playing for positional pressure. Short castling, bishop g2 and rook e8. g3, short castling, d4 first, rook e8, bishop g5, bishop e6. So black is trying to move the bishop to d5. Bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, bishop g2, bishop f5, knight bd2, queen e7, so prevent whites from short castling. And in case white plays knight h4, that's exactly what happened in the game. Otherwise, it's not so clear how white could make a short castling. Anyway, I believe that short castling was the best way just to sacrifice a pawn, but to complete the development. When white played knight h4, which is a serious blunder, that's why I would like to show you the game. Black found that just simple tactical combination sends to the weak pawn on e2, unprotected position of the pawn on e2, and the bad position of the king of the center. Bishop takes e2, immediately finishes the game. Why? Because after queen takes e2, queen takes e2 is coming. Otherwise, just no way for white to survive. Same situation after queen c1 and queen takes e2, and the game is over. So it's funny that when I used to play the From's Gambit in my games during my events on ICC, that in one game one of my opponents also missed this simple tactical combination. So after e takes d6, bishop takes d6, knight f3, I played g5 and my opponent decided just to stop me from playing g4 and moved h3. Just huge blunder. So it could happen quite often in your games as well. So this bishop g3 checkmate situation. Of course, not always I succeed to win so fast. Some games continue knight f3, g5, g3, g4, knight h4, knight e7, almost similar position which we studied already. So now in case of bishop g2 and knight g6, black is getting very good game. So why choose in that game to play d4, and after knight g6, forced to capture on g6, h take g6. Now, what to play? Obviously that bishop g2 will be met by rook takes h2, and then bishop takes g2, g3, and the rook on h2 is gone. Queen d3, that's exactly what happened in the game. White is trying to cover the g3 pawn and to stop black from playing rook takes h2. queen e7, c3, bishop f5. So c3 cannot be recommended because now black is just taking control over the a8 h1 diagonal, which is almost decisive. So after bishop f5, there's no moves. Queen e3 once again will lead to queen takes e3 or bishop e4 first, and then just simply capture the pawn next move after white's rook moves from h1. So my opponent played queen d1, but then bishop takes g3. Position is just winning for black. So black is capturing another pawn on h2 and clearly better, almost winning position for black. Not counting that c3 was a serious mistake, but even after move like bishop g2 and knight c6 with additional threat, bishop f5, knight b4, long castling, black is having huge initiative. For instance, short castling could be made by knight takes d4, queen takes d4 and bishop c5, just winning material, winning a queen. Move like e3 also could be made by knight b4, attacking the queen. For instance, queen e2, and then what can we do? Same, rook takes h2, and bishop takes g3, winning back the rook on h2 and getting the material advantage. So the position is just very, very difficult for white. Okay, I just like to show you one more example from the game I played. f4, e5, f takes e5, d6, e takes d6, bishop takes d6, knight f3, knight f6, d4, castling short side, bishop g5, rook e8. Keeping the strong pressure over the e-file. Queen d3, knight c6, e4. So looks like white is doing great. Rook takes e4 will be met by queen takes e4, and unfortunately black's queen on d8 is hanging. So after knight takes e4, bishop takes d8, white is still okay, but black is having just much more simple continuation. Bishop f5, knight bd2, knight b4. So huge development advantage here is decisive factor. Queen b3, and I came here with the queen sacrifice. Knight takes e4, bishop takes d8, knight c5 check. Suddenly white is not losing the queen, but also thanks to the threats over on the c2 pawn, black is getting almost decisive material also advantage. King d1, better was to play knight f2, but still black is winning, of course, after knight takes b3. Knight takes b3, a takes b3, knight takes c2, and black is threatening knight e3, black is threatening knight takes e1, black is threatening rook takes d8. White is just critical position. So my opponent just played rook a5, but decided to resign, since after knight e3 check and the next move capture on d8 and next move maybe bishop b4, just totally hopeless situation for white. So white is completely hopeless. So just looking at a few games, we already could understand that the position of white after f4 e5, f takes e5 and g6, e takes g6 and bishop takes g6 is very dangerous. So white has to play extremely careful in order to stop black's attack in the From's gambit of the bird's opening line. So next lesson I give you just slightly a different way for white, how white was trying to play and to offer the counter gambit situation in the From's gambit. So how white was trying to destroy black's attacking potential. And also we will study the light theory of the From's gambit variation, main line I would call this. Thanks everybody for watching and follow me next week. If you have any question, you can contact me on my website www.chesslessons.wordpress.com, and if you have any questions about any opening line we already studied, or you would like to ask me some special requests, just you're welcome to contact me directly through my site. See you next week. Bye.